Hello everybody and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Today we're going to be doing a review and discussion for the movie Ring 2, or also known as Ringu 2, which came out in 1999. On the channel here, one of my goals with starting this channel is obviously to watch more movies, have a place to kind of sit down and discuss movies, but one of my other goals was just to get into more films that I wouldn't normally sit down and watch in my free time. And for this year, I really would like to broaden my taste a little bit, and that includes more foreign films. I am a huge obvious movie nerd and lover, but I also am very aware of how ignorant I am to the world of cinema. So a goal here is to become a less ignorant film lover. And I thought this franchise would be a fun first time watch and delve into this franchise together, because I am so unfamiliar with the franchise, and it's so weird because it's such an iconic franchise that is so ingrained into pop culture, especially with its premise and especially its imagery here. So on the channel here, throughout the next couple weeks, we're going to be doing the first 3 Japanese ones, first 3 American ones, doing some cool comparison videos, and of course a ranking at the end. So without further ado, let's jump into the review section, starting with the positives, or just the things that I enjoyed most about this movie. And one thing I always praise a lot on this channel, and just for my own particular taste, is I always love continuity, especially within horror franchises. I'll always praise a sequel when it finds such a smooth, nice transition way to pick up right after the events of the first film, and I feel like this one does it pretty well to start things off. Right from the intro, we are instantly caught up with characters that are dealing with the aftermath from the first movie we just watched. We see one of the characters from the island. I am blanking on his name at the moment, but we see him immediately being brought back to take a look at Sadako's body. And we learn a pretty cool, interesting detail that Sadako's body that was found in the well beneath that hotel from the first movie, in that great scene, we learn that somehow this girl was still alive when she was sealed down in that well for about 30 years. Like, she had only died a couple years ago, which is such a creepy, unsettling idea, because it not only puts you to imagine yourself locked in a well for 3 decades, but then just the implication of that, and then going back to see the implication of it from the first film. Such a unique idea, and again provides some of that unique, smooth transition here. I also like that we have continuity with the story, but then also with our characters that we were following. For example, we find out that Ryuko is now missing right after the events of the first film, and right after they discovered Sadako's body, which is a really strong hook, and then kind of instantly gives this sequel enough juice, enough reason to exist right away. And since the first movie left so much open and unanswered while still providing a good enough conclusion to that story, it makes sense why they would continue the story with a sequel, try to uncover more about the curse, pick up of the events from the first film, and figure out more about what is actually happening here. And again, speaking of continuity and my appreciation for some of these characters, I also like that Ryuji's assistant, I believe you pronounce it as Mai, becomes one of essentially our main character for this sequel. I think it is such a smart choice, because she was very close to him. She's the one who found his dead body at the end of the first one, and she really has no idea what was going on between him and Ryuko. We only kind of see her scattered throughout the first film, so she is trying to piece everything together herself, and again, the new movie does a nice job of kind of putting you in that character's headspace of like, she is such an outsider, but still involved in the story. I couldn't imagine not being aware of what was going on, but only seeing the aftermath. And now we're picking up from her perspective after seeing that aftermath, which I think is a really cool idea. And it also helps here, especially with making the story feel bigger and a little bit more grounded, is that you have the police involved right away. Once we learn that Ryuko showed the curse tape to her father to save her son, Yoichi, I am trying with these pronunciations. I swear, I do apologize. I am butchering them. I am not Japanese. I know, sit down. It might be a surprise, but I'm going to keep trying here. But we find out that that is what she was doing at the end of the first film, like it was implied. And now both her father and ex-husband are now dead. And it really makes the curse feel like it's almost kind of spreading, getting way too big for these characters to really take control of. And things in general are starting to get out of control. So at least at the start, there's some of that good build up here. And I also think there's a slight improvement here with how they utilize Mai's psychic abilities in this movie. They hint that it's the reason she worked with Ryuji in the first place. And unlike the problems I had with the first movie, it doesn't feel like it's just there to provide exposition or lazy answers to the audience. Instead, it feels like something that she doesn't fully understand and is in this position where she's missing her mentor. And as she gets closer to Sadako and the curse, you feel that connection and power getting a little bit more stronger, and it's used to help save the characters in the story instead of progressing the story, which I think is just such a more interesting, creative way to utilize something like that. But unfortunately, with this sequel, we are done with the positives here. So let's jump on over to my mixed aspects I have for the movie. And I do really like the idea of what this movie was trying to do with Yoichi and Ryuko and how it kind of mirrors that plot line we learned about in the first movie with Sadako and her mother. Like this cycle of trauma and this curse continuing on to this new mother and son dynamic and relationship, I think makes a lot of sense here. And Yoichi surviving the tape and now having these psychic abilities with somehow surviving the tape and then getting these powers is an interesting concept on paper. However, the way this movie decides to execute things just feels lazy, boring, and uninteresting. Instead of feeling creepy or unsettling like the majority of the first movie felt to me, it kind of comes off as kind of awkward and not that scary. Yoichi here basically turns into this weird mix of a psychic kid communicating telepathically, influencing people, and causing deaths, which just feels kind of off tonally. And it led to one of the most confusing scenes I've ever seen in a movie, weirdly edited, weirdly set up, and had a weird payoff, which is the mother's death with the character of Ryuko. Like halfway through the movie, she dies, and I was like, oh shit, like they actually did that. From what I could tell after a police interview, after Yoichi kind of runs away with her, she gets hit by a truck, but it's heavily, at least to me, heavily implied that Yoichi somehow caused it or allowed this to happen with his connection to the curse and his new abilities. But like I was hinting at, the editing of this scene is so strange. It is so difficult to tell what actually happened, why it happened, or what the real purpose of an event like this was. So I like the idea of it more than the execution, because the execution, the cheesiness to the character of Yoichi kind of takes away any tension or emotional weight, at least in my viewing experience. But with that said, let's jump over to the negatives or the things that I just didn't really like about this movie. And unfortunately, I should have known with the year turnaround this sequel had, this movie is a significant downgrade from the first one in almost every single category. The biggest thing missing to me here in this movie is the atmosphere. The eerie tone and tension and constant sense of dread that made the the first Ring movie so special to me is almost completely gone here. There are large chunks of this movie where it honestly feels like it forgets to be a horror film. There's barely any tension, not a lot of scares or scare setups, and almost none of that unsettling imagery that really stuck with me with the first movie here. And it also has a major sequel problem where it feels repetitive of the first film. We are once again following someone investigating the cursed tape, but this time it doesn't work because guess what, guys? We already know all the answers. So instead of discovering something new, we're just kind of watching Mai go through the same steps. She is analyzing the tape, finding out about the tape, going through news footage and newspapers, traveling back to the island of Oshima, and staying in all the same locations. It's all information that we got from the first movie, and instead of it being engaging, it just kind of becomes boring. Feels like the movie is slightly dragging as we wait for something new to happen. And that doesn't really work for a sequel because us as audience members are kind of just waiting for the characters to catch up to information that we already knew before we started the second movie. So it's just kind of like watching someone go through the motions, if I'm being honest. And when I got done watching this movie, I immediately had that feeling of this is one of those movies where you finish it and immediately feel like nothing really happened and you almost kind of start forgetting parts of this. Like I watched this a day ago and I'm already kind of blanking on large chunks of this movie. And another big issue to that is the story becomes just very unclear and kind of convoluted in a way that is not interesting or encouraging more rewatch. It's just overly complicated for the sake of, I guess, feeling overly complicated or bigger than it actually is. A lot of revelations here just kind of happen, not much build-up or explanation, and it's hard to follow what the actual goal of these characters are at time. And for example, they never really explain or properly explain why Yoshi is one who seems to take on Sadako's power, or at least her rageful presence. For example, like, why is it him specifically? Has this happened before? Is it just because he's a child, maybe around the similar age? Are other children walking around with this power? Is it because he survived the tape? Why didn't his mom have any of the repercussions or reactions to this? And if that's the case, why didn't it happen to anybody else, or did it? And are we just following one example of this? And none of it is really explained. It just kind of all comes off as very random. Let's throw an idea at the board. Hey, that one kind of sticks. Let's roll with it. Similar to my experience with the first one, significantly more with this one. Unfortunately, the ending specifically is really where this movie started to fall apart, where it easily could have saved this in being an okay, enjoyable movie. But with this movie, in the ending, in the climax, they come up with this plan where Yoshi and Mai are somehow decided to hook up themselves to equipment near a big swimming pool, and they're trying to somehow draw Sadako's presence out and then have it absorbed into the power of the water. But the movie fails to ever explain their stance on this, like how this works, why this would work, or what the plan is. Very similar to the first one. It seems like they're trying to build up this mystery, but then they're like, fuck, we got to get to the third act. Give them the answers, and then we're just going to roll with it. But they never stop to at least give us some discovery of how they came across these answers, why these answers might kind of work. And for me, it just felt all confusing. Like the only thing I could really gather is they're trying to pull Sadako's hatred out of Yoshi and contain it with water, and the way it's presented just feels ridiculous at that point. And on top of that, the movie doesn't really do anything with its cursed tape footage angle, something that is so iconic at this point. Nothing new added or anything interested. We really don't get any new rules, new information, or really much focus on it at all, or something kind of different. I feel like you really only see a couple flashes of it, and it's just recycled footage from the first film. If anything, it kind of just makes things more confusing for me because now it's kind of unclear too if you need to watch the full tape to be cursed, if just seeing bits and pieces of it is good enough. And I'm just left with feeling this inconsistency that just makes the whole concept of this sequel feel weaker and the idea of the ring feeling slightly weaker instead of what a proper sequel should do, which is expand and find a way to improve on the ideas that were set up in the first film. So with that being said, I would say that overall, Ring 2 is a disappointing sequel that really loses the atmosphere and tension of the original, instead replacing its gripping mystery with a repetitive and often confusing story. So for my rating for this movie here, this is a movie I don't ever see myself watching again. If I want that Ring experience, I'm gonna go back to the first Japanese film and thoroughly enjoy myself there. So this is a movie, if you're curious if it's free on streaming for a platform you're already paying for, I'd say check it out. Maybe you'll get more out of it than I would, but for me, this is not one that I'm ever gonna watch again or rent again or really want to sit down and experience, unfortunately. So you guys have my thoughts here. I am praying the third one is a little bit better and maybe we get back up on a high note here for the Ring franchise. But you have my thoughts. Let me know down below what you think of Ring 2 from 1999. Do you like it more than the first one? I'd love to hear thoughts and feelings on that. Or do you agree with me? Is it significantly worse than the first one? Let me know your thoughts and feelings on this movie. And like I said, look forward to this fun, kind of out of nowhere Ring franchise review series. I got a bunch planned for this. So if you like the Ring, whether it's Japanese or American, you have found a home here because we're going to talk about it. So guys, that's about it. I appreciate anybody watching my videos. Thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.